Okay. Do you have the master control for recording?
Yeah, I have it for recording, so that's why. But the problem is you have to log out of the meeting for it to start recording.
Really? I have to log out, or
No, me. If I
okay.
have the recording in the meeting,
Mhm.
I have to log out of the meeting for it to start to render.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's Zoom.
Okay.
It's one of those Zoom. You have to log out for it to
Mhm.
start to render.
Okay.
Like Google Meet, you
Mhm.
hit stop recording and it automatically starts rendering. Well, you
Yeah,
already.
I mean it's a cloud thing anyway. So, hello.
So I'll probably just turn my mic and thing off unless you have a question or need help.
Okay. Okay.
You're a little more tech savvy than other people.
You're pretty tech savvy. Okay. Hello. Okay. All right. So we're just waiting for a couple other people who will be helping me with the roundtable. But if you would like to introduce yourself in the meantime, go ahead.
I'm Ailey, I'm from Caid, and although I haven't planned a war in an hour, we basically had to plan a virtual war in an hour because Potrero got canceled just a matter of a couple of weeks before the event, and that sucked. But although there were glitches with the Zoom and all the other various sundry, it was so much better than nothing. And I realized, yeah, you can actually plan these things if you find the right people with whatever skill set you need. And that's, I think, in anybody that's planning a war, that's what you need. You need to find the people with the skill sets.
Sure. And especially, I haven't been to a quote new war. I'm trying to remember the name. Battlemore. I wanted to go to, but all of the ones that I've been to, basically on the West Coast and Penzik, have been going on for a number of years, and so there's community knowledge and tribal knowledge, and trying to go through how some of that gets started, and was that just the way we've always done that, or are there other solutions? Those are kinds of things. But I've attended a lot of wars, and I've run large camps, but I have never run a actual interkingdom war myself.
We tried to start a new war between Caid and Artemisia, and everybody was super enthusiastic, but it turns out that Las Vegas is no place to try to find a site for a war.
Oh,
I mean, it really wasn't. The neighborhood that we had it in twice, although it looked like a middle-class neighborhood, it was there. We had vandalism like nobody's business.
oh boy.
And other locations in Las Vegas had rules that we couldn't match. Things like we had to pay for security at $25 an hour, and we had to. There were so many things that we just couldn't meet, and we couldn't have. Well, we couldn't have archery, but you can always. Well, it's not that you can always live with that, but that's not an unusual restriction. But we just could not. We had it three or four times, and we could not maintain it because the site rules kept changing so wildly. We couldn't do it.
Okay.
Not for want of trying, and the Artemisians wanted to come, and the Caidans wanted to come, but trying to do it in Las Vegas just wasn't going to work.
Okay, I think we're gathering steam. Hoping Ellis is able to join us.
She
shortly.
is in the lobby, I think, trying to figure out how to get into here. So hopefully she was there just a moment ago. I'm just super amused by my background and the fact that my head is perfectly where I am. The picture.
Well done.
I don't know. I am amused by silly things.
Okay. I'm not sure if we should wait a couple more moments. If anyone else would like to introduce themselves, go ahead.
I'm Katrina, and I am hanging out on Joel's roundtable here. I've done an extensive amount of work with large wars in regards to water bearing and snacks and things of that nature. And just in general being on staff and event planning and event stewarding, and I'm also the West Kingdom site coordinator. So setting up events is my jam. So I'm kind of here hanging out and going to talk and answer some questions today. Joel, do you want me to go jump back into the lobby and see if I can help Alice get in here?
If you can, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll go do that real quick.
Okay. And just to confirm, if this isn't clear, the intent is for this session to be recorded. So if that is not your jam, please let me know. Okay. Alrighty. So my intent here is honestly just to keep this pretty light and casual. So I do have a couple people that I'm seating the audience with, Katrina being one of them, Alice another. But really, I am interested in this being a open and dynamic discussion. There, I know some of the mystical arts of what's necessary about planning hails, but not all of them. And so I think collectively we're stronger sharing our knowledge. That way, I have a little document that I started that I'll share. Hopefully you can see that. That's really just a very loose starting point for me. There, and can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Would you be able to share that to the chat so that we can make our own copies of it?
Oh, sure. Let's see.
Joel, if you don't know, if you switch edit to copy, it automatically makes it.
Okay.
At the end, if
Right.
you
Okay.
copy,
Mhm.
and then copy that, it will force them to make a copy.
Uh, okay. See if that works. Okay. So the thing that I know the least about is the financial and budgeting side of things. So hopefully Alice can talk a little bit about that. But Katrina, if you're back, do you want to maybe talk to us about water first?
Yep. Give me 1 second. I'm not on mute anymore, am I? Okay. Sorry, I'm playing around with my views here just so I can see all of you and the document a little easier, but it's fun. Okay, so water. Water is a very interesting thing, especially now. I've actually been trying to figure out what the heck that's actually going to look like as far as post-COVID time. To talk about it in just a pre-COVID time, it's usually you'll have a station or stations, depending on how big your war is, with volunteers that run water out to the fighters with reusable bottles, usually with sport tops. something that we've implemented at Great Western is if the fighter puts their mouth on it, the water bearer brings it back. We take the top off, we dump it in bleach water, and we give them a new top, and they can go back out. That is fairly self-explanatory. The planning part is if you have potable water on site, it's much easier. You can have a bunch of 5 to 10 gallon, what we call GATs, and you fill them up and you can refill them at your leisure and no big deal. If there's not potable water on site though, that becomes fun because then we have to rely on water being brought in. Yes, fun, quotes, Carrie. We have to rely on folks bringing water, to site. Most times I will run a station on donations. At the bigger wars, there usually is some budget to be had, but usually you want to run on donations. With the food, pickles and oranges, Great Western numbers, we go through about a 20-pound bag of oranges in 1 to 2 days of heavy fighting. If it's hotter, we go through them faster. We go through about a 5-gallon bucket, of pickles equivalent every day. The pickles go faster for sure.
So, a question there. About how many fighters would you say that's covering it?
For Great Western, you're looking at probably around 200, 300, somewhere in there.
Okay.
When you're on the field at any given time, for usually somewhere between 3 to 4 days of fighting, depending on what's been planned. Usually Thursday is very, very light because most people haven't gotten there yet. So you have a little time there as far as not needing as much supplies. One of the biggest things that folks should know about water and water bearing stations is storage of the stuff. It has to live somewhere. So we're fortunate at Great Western that there's actually a storage facility where all of this stuff goes. It lives in tubs and it lives there, and we just pull it out. All the war planners pull it out at the setup crew pulls it out for us.
And do you do any special spring cleaning with that, or is it basically just bleach water?
So we actually, we clean everything as thoroughly at the end of every event. We wipe everything down and get it ready at the end of every day. So we don't do anything super special other than just make sure everything's super clean to be put away. We have little plastic cutting boards, for oranges and pickles, the little flimsy plasticky guys. And we wipe those down with bleach wipes and make sure that's all clean. We clean up the tables. If there's any sort of fabric items, those usually go with someone from Kaid's war staff that washes them. So like Becky is taking them for me, or Robin takes those out. And washes those and then just hangs onto them because there's usually not that many. It's usually not a lot.
And from a outside of the Warfield perspective, are you providing a 5-gallon cooler
Yes.
to each of the activity zones, like anywhere?
Get out of my head. That was my next point. Psychic. No, so we do have, at least with Great Western, we do have a kind of adjunct to that, which we call hospitality, which is we have 5-gallon jugs, or sometimes 3, depending on what we've got, at various points throughout the war. So down on the archery field, they have one. Rapier actually usually has their setup as well. Then there's also one at Arts and Sciences where all the classes are held. There's 1, 2, 3. I think that's all. Oh, and Gate, there it is. I think there was another one. And Gate actually we put big ones at because that's pretty much open 24/7. So they need something there with them all the time. Most of the time we're delivering them supplies and they're kind of making their own stuff. It just kind of depends. We're also very lucky at Great Western. We have access to ice. So we'll all go, I would go through and fill up a gap for them and swap it out. And if they wanted ice, they got ice, and all was fun.
Okay. For larger events like this kind of war, do you think it works more efficiently having sort of a central water company like yourself running and talking to the various departments, or would you rather effectively delegate each of the zones being basically able to fend for themselves, possibly providing their own setup?
I think at Great Western is really kind of down to a science. So it's fairly easy. They don't go, the outlying areas, the non-battlefield areas, don't go through a whole lot in a day. So it's really just, you jump in a golf cart, or in my case, I used my van last year, and you jam around to the site in the morning and in the afternoon and the evening, and then you're on the radio if they need you. This, I think, is a good idea because it frees up the people running those places to not have to worry about it. And that's why it's called hospitality, is that. I speak a lot to Great Western Works. That's the main war that I'm on staff for, as far as planning with West Ontario, and I've only been to Estrella once. Those types of wars I haven't been as involved. I know Estrella has a whole different way they do it. So it's very, very different than what Great Western does. And I think it's just, that's the way they set it up, and it works. It works for them.
I know a little bit about the Estrella, that it's still somewhat surprising the way that the battlefield part worked, which is one house, which is quite large, called House Inverted, as a blue and white battle axe, basically does the main water bearing. And it wasn't super obvious that, no, they got it, but they have permission to bring trucks down to the battlefield, and it was a very, very organized, very fleshed out system. But it wasn't for, especially for out of kingdom visitors, it was very unclear. Like, is this covered? Is this not covered? Kind of thing. So I would recommend going out of our way for communication about a future war, that water will be available in these places or something along those lines.
Right.
There, but just trying to.
There's always a very big danger, and everybody knows blah blah blah. No, they don't.
Yeah.
No, they don't. So the communication is definitely key on that between kingdoms.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to throw out?
I think at some point I'd love to bounce ideas around about post-COVID stuff and what that could maybe look like and that kind of thing, just to kind of brainstorm conversations. But
sure, I found something that seemed to be aimed towards the like triathlon community, where it was a very interesting, and they're trying to go as non-contact as possible, but they had sort of like multiple spigots coming off a 100-gallon tank that went to basically sawhorse like pieces, and so they could get basically 30 or 40 filling stations running concurrently in a no-touch way. It came at a pretty price, so it's debatable whether 5 people filling independently can do better than 50 people trying to do it all at once.
Yeah.
But, so
I think that's going to actually be a very
room for a serious discussion about post-COVID. I would say the West has had several solutions that I think were adequate, but new public health measures are probably going to recommend more than what we've done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
anyone else? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think like because we only implemented the bleach water in for the sports tabs in the last, like, I want to say 3-4 years, maybe a little longer than that. Sometimes they all meld together. But I I think that absolutely was a step in the right direction just for infection control in general. Forget about COVID just for not getting colds.
And I would say also bleach definitely tends to be effective and inexpensive. I would also be curious about running a bartender's cold dunk sanitizer.
Mhm.
That may be.
It's kind of what we do.
Okay.
Is we actually have like a bowl that's got a
Mhm.
strainer inside the bowl of the bleach
Mhm.
water, and then you toss the caps in there. We have plenty of caps so we can just swap out so nobody's waiting. I actually have a great big bag of caps that I bought for what would have been last year, sitting in my closet. But anyway, we dump them in there. We swish it around a bit, and get them off, and then let them dry on the towel, in the
Mhm.
sun, and get nice and dry and clean while we do that. So it's basically, oh, sorry, I missed the rinse water step. We put them in the rinse water, and then we put them on the towel to dry out.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to share about that? Okay. With a not so subtle transition, let's maybe move over to finance. And I'm wondering, perhaps Ellis, if you can talk to us a little bit. Okay, and you're still muted. Okay.
Financing a war?
Yes. Starting from budget, most war budgets tend to be very black budget, private numbers kind of thing. And I'm interested in what kind of money you would want to have up front, and what kinds of delayed payment options you can try to work through, anything along those lines.
So if what we're discussing is a new interkingdom war,
Mhm.
call it, for the sake of convenience, West Artemisia.
War of the South.
God, the South will rise again. Don't even go there. First
We
thing,
don't joke about that.
first thing you have to do is figure out whether the kingdom is willing to support the war. Because you cannot really support a war financially without the kingdom being behind it. And then you have to figure out whether both kingdoms are going to contribute equally and share equally in the profits, or whether the sponsor of the war is going to switch back and forth, or whether, and a lot falls out of that, because if the kingdom says, we will finance the war, but you can only have $2,000, that puts a lot of limitation on potential sites, on just about everything, because even if you're selling tickets in advance, you have to have a reserve to cover those tickets in case you had to cancel at the last minute.
Right.
So you have to know what kind of budget might be available before you can actually budget.
And
Now,
then I'm also curious,
the
just in
second
terms of
year's
like
war will be
bank account.
financed by the profits from the first one, basically.
I'm also curious, does a war, especially an interkingdom war, do they incorporate separately? Do they have bank accounts that are shared with the host
It depends
kingdom?
on how big the war is. Penzic has its own exchequer, its own bank accounts, its own budget. It does not touch the kingdom accounts, except that they get cuts of the profit. I believe the same is true for West on Tier, but I'm not positive. I'm not sure they have separate bank accounts, for example. But it's only big wars that have established that get into that kind of situation. because a lot of the big wars and other big events are single kingdom events.
Right.
The Wings, that's an Atlantean event. It's huge. It's Atlantean. It all runs through the Atlantean budgets.
So as an example, Ellie, one of our early journers, was part of Prochero War, but if I'm understanding, Prochero is a large war, but not officially declared as an interkingdom war, in that it's sort of wholly owned by Calafia.
That is
Right.
correct. It is not a kingdom event. It is a baronial event.
Yeah.
But I'm also have been steward at Great Western several times, which is a kingdom event with other kingdoms participating. But at the moment, as I recall, it's only the water bearers that are run by the people from the West. Other sub stewards are pretty much all Kaidans. Not that we wouldn't like to have plenty of other people.
Yeah, at least the last Great Western War, the constable for the whole war was Western.
Oh,
as well.
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I would love to chat with you about participation between West and Kaid and how we can make that a little more feasible.
That only
Because
works.
I have opinions.
That only works when you know who the stewards are and you can.
Right.
Yeah,
have the
there's
We were
there's some
having
communication.
conversations around that a few years ago that wound up not being as fruitful as we had hoped.
Unfortunately, yes.
When all the meetings are at Kaid events, it makes it a little hard.
Yeah.
It is hard.
It is hard. I mean, not even to be snarky.
There's a reason that it is referred to by some of us as the Great Western Snit.
Mm.
So, what can I say?
And fair disclosure, I am taking, we're trying to make it a staff position, but as an official West Kingdom liaison to Great Western this year. So
That would be wonderful.
I have a very good relationship with some of the stewards. Hopefully, I know the others, but not well.
Well, I think that one thing about all of the online stuff that we've been doing for this past year has taught us that a lot of these meetings can be done as a Zoom, which means that Western participation would be much, much easier.
Sure.
You know, having somebody drive all the way down to downtown, you know, to LA for a meeting, it's not great if it's 8 hours, and it's not great even if it's 4.
Right.
So, but being able to do this on Zoom where people can interact, it can be done. A war meeting on Zoom would be quite doable.
Absolutely.
And I would definitely encourage stewards for big events to do that when you're trying to get out of kingdom participation in an event.
Okay. Ellis, I think that covers us on at least the initial finance. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
It has nothing to do with, well, yes, it does have to do with budgeting. Single factor that can make and break a war is site selection. And you've got to know what your budget is. You've got to have some idea how many people you're expecting. And I don't care how well you think you know the site before you finalize the contract. You have to go walk it, and you have to go walk the whole damn thing. You have to walk the camping areas, you have to walk the fighting areas, you have to walk the random areas because people will wind up there.
Yeah.
And if it's full of ground squirrels that weren't there the previous year, you might want to consider a different site.
So I was Kingdom Seneschal when Great Western lost its initial site. And I had asked a couple if they would be my deputies looking for a new site for Great Western. For a full year, they put close to 5,000 miles on their vehicle going throughout the entire of, well, it was not the entirety of Kaid, it didn't include Hawaii, but every other bit of Kaid trying to find a site. And finding a war site is a real bear because you need so much more than you need for a weekend event. And it came down to the one in Bakersfield and one that I don't even remember where it was, but it was completely undeveloped area. There was no water, no power, nothing. And we would have had, and it was just bare ground. And we would have had to start from scratch. At least with the Bakersfield, we were close enough to town that we could get the ice. And we had the ability to get the generators and the porta potties and the showers that we would have had a real hard time getting it into the other one. One whole year, 5,000 miles of travel, 2 sites that were even close.
Many years ago, the then Kingdom Seneschal and I, every weekend, and sometimes after work, went and drove through the Santa Cruz Mountains, and every time we saw a sign that said children's camp or YMCA or a church sign or anything, we'd get off the road and go look at it. We also looked at about 40 fairgrounds and so yeah.
It's hard.
It
You've
really,
gotta-
it
You gotta
really
go
is.
walk the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
There-
I've spent-
it's no joke trying to find something where you can put 2, 3, 4,000 people for 5 to 10
Mhm.
days. It's hard. And
Mhm.
It's
Now
hard
you-
enough just finding a place for 400 to 600 for a weekend.
oh, yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's
Yeah.
that's hard enough. You add the complexities of a large Kingdom War with thousands of people.
Larger and
Oh,
longer.
Lordy.
So much
So
harder.
I have the slight advantage in this situation that in my dual role that I'm now a director at KHCI, we happen to have a parcel of land that is very anxious to host some events as soon as we can in the future.
You are very
um,
lucky.
Yeah. So we're really trying to dial in all of the lessons learned and tribal knowledge that we can to help make it as effective a war site as we can. The site itself definitely has some challenges, so we'll see how we can make it all work. But so transitioning, one of the gray areas for me is how to work with the BOD of the SCA and how much lead time they want. And, are they receptive to the idea of new wars? I thought that they needed very explicit approval for an inter-kingdom level event.
Mm-mm.
Unless the rules have changed, no. The
Okay.
only thing the board will
Yeah,
get
no, that's
in is if there are waiver peculiarities and a special waiver has to be created,
Mhm.
or if there are fights over money,
Mhm.
or they might take a look at an event once it went substantially over 5,000 people. But other than that, until
otherwise it's a negotiation between the kingdoms. Sorry.
it's
Ally.
all interkingdom stuff, the board really only cares about that the money is tracked correctly.
Okay. I heard, and I may not have heard this correctly, but it seemed like there were some fairly major plateau points where costs get substantially increased from resources that need to be allocated, like emergency services, EMT, that kind of stuff. That once you got above 3,000, it was a big jump in fees. But that was
That is actually a state/county thing.
okay.
For example, in Washoe County, Nevada, which contains Reno, if it's over 5,000 people, you must be within, I think it's a 2-minute drive of a full-service hospital or have an ambulance on site. That was the time that I took the large event planning class in that county, which was years ago. And there are rules about, for example, sanitation and the number of the number of privies per head.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because I know for
The
our,
number of privies by the number of pumpings.
okay. Because I know that was a big issue for us for the Golden Belton 50-year
Mhm.
celebration, that they were in a total panic of, will we have enough showers? Will we enough privies? And I think we were well over, but that was a considerable part of the budget.
Well, Potrero
The
has a
problem
problem.
was we were over privy, but they weren't placed well.
Yeah.
Potrero has a
In
problem
areas
getting
people never
showers.
camped in.
Potrero has a problem getting showers because all of the shower trucks in the southern part of California, south of the Bakersfield area, are their primary contract is with firefighters, with the
Yeah.
with fire.
Absolutely.
So if there's
Yep.
a fire anywhere, that's where the showers go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the porta potties are not under that same kind of contracting, but the shower trucks are. And that's why they are very expensive, and we never know when they're going to have to pack them up and leave.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One
And-
thing I want to
Privies.
point out with in your planning, and I see Carrick over there, so I'm going to
Mhm.
get to you in a second. I just want to make this quick point. I don't know if we actually have a moderator in here. I've just started moderating, sorry. I do it for the after chat for between two beers, so it was like, okay, let's just do it. One of the big things that could be a super headache when you are planning a brand new event, if we're talking about brand new Interkingdom War, is you have honestly no genuine idea of how many people are going to be there. You can kind of guess.
Absolutely.
Pre-registration.
Yeah, you'd either do pre-reg.
Pre-reg will give you a floor, but not a ceiling.
Uh-huh, exactly. Because, and usually a lot of the time it's like 20% of people who read, if you're getting money up front, it's higher. If you're just saying, oh yes, I'm coming.
Yeah.
But
I will
that is
never
one of the biggest.
endorse a no commitment reservation.
Yeah, no, definitely put your money where your mouth is. That's for sure, for certain. But that is, it can be a very, like with Golden Beltane, is it could have been, you know, what it was, or it could have been
Massive.
we're going to be really massive. And that's honestly what we're kind of dealing with right now is looking at, you know, myself and Gavin, our seneschal, and things are how and what do we plan for when we're actually able to have an event again, because it could either be really, really small or 1,000 people. You
Okay.
know, I mean,
Can we-
we're just like,
Katrina, can we go back to Carrick?
yes, yeah, I just wanted
Okay.
to make that point, that that's a pain point in planning.
Heard.
Has anyone done the math to find out what the price outlay would be to acquire our own shower infrastructure for things like that? The reason I ask is because there's a fairgrounds relatively close by here in Darkwood, and for years and years they had an on-site shower truck that they had purchased. It was a portable, it was towed, they tied it into their infrastructure there. Just want to know if we've even looked into it.
I haven't.
They're expensive. They are very expensive, and I suspect that any that we could talk ourselves into affording, number one, we would need another storage for it, which is a continual outlay. And number two, anything we could afford would probably be so derelict that people would get the ickies about showering in it.
Right. Now, I know.
People who run it as a business can do the upkeep and buy a new one when the old one gets awful. But we've rented some that I thought about taking a shower, turned around and left.
Yeah. I know at Potrero, they've had relative success, and I haven't been in several years to be sure, but where they were using the sun shower, bag system, and then in some cases, depending on where you were, there was hot water available inside that you could fill up the bag with. But they had 3 or 4 stalls available in several locations, I think, and that was not perfect, but it definitely worked. and that was definitely on the cheap. You know, we were basically standing on wood pallet over drainable land. They had very inexpensive curtains set up. You could shower with a friend, and
You were muted.
Yeah, the
that
park
whole
doesn't
time.
allow that anymore.
Gotcha.
We had a number of them, as you say, in
Mhm.
different places, and no, they don't allow that anymore.
Was that just from the drainage issue?
It's the gray
Gray
water
water.
issues, and even if you have a gray water catch container,
Mhm.
they don't allow the use of the showers because not everybody bothers with a catch tank.
Okay.
And so it's either in the permanent showers, which are not nice, or the shower truck. And
Gotcha.
the shower truck is small and it's relatively close to the battlefield, but it's not awesome.
And I know for me, as I came to the SCA on the fringe side, I had no idea what the shower trucks actually were. I knew that I saw people walking in and out of a trailer thing, but I had no idea that it was actually a shower truck. And there was no sign that said, by the way, there was no sign on the map. It was, I was quite a bit surprised. You know, I probably went to 2 years of events that had showers at them before I understood, like, oh, could have been much nicer. So,
Yeah,
right.
showering, it's not new. It's been several years since the county decided that they would not allow the sun showers at all.
Gotcha.
Uh, their gray water policies have become far more restrictive. They're not intolerable. They're just something that we have to work with, and I understand, but they become more restrictive. But they're fine with the shower truck. They're fine with the porta potties. But they are not fine with anything that might produce gray water.
Okay. I wanted to shift over to hay bales. Does anyone have any insights there?
We rent ours.
Mhm.
We don't buy them. And they come all the way from El Centro, which is from Potrero,
It's a
close
waste.
to 100 miles.
Yeah.
If we break a bale, we pay for it. But
Okay. So,
they come from El Centro on their way to the south of San Diego, to near the border.
Mhm.
So they're okay with coming from El Centro, dropping them off, and then picking them up and taking them to just south of San Diego, just on the border.
okay.
I don't recall where we get our hay bales for Great Western,
Mhm.
but if anybody wants to know, I can certainly find that out.
Right.
Okay.
Do you remember, Alita, if you were able to get them all for Great Western from one feed facility?
Yes.
Because I know I've run in, at least up here, into trouble where, you know, they only have X number.
Well, for Potrero, we get a double load of hay bales, which runs between 400 and 450, depending on how they're packed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's similar for Great Western. So it's basically one tractor pulling 2 trailers, you know, those great monstrous
Right.
piles of hay. It's just one trip for Great Western, but so it can't be coming from other.
Right. Right. Yes.
vendors.
One drop off. So it's obviously coming from one feed place. Okay.
Yeah. I know I was somewhat horrified when I was at my one and only Penzic experience, seeing the radically different way that paint bills are used at Penzic than on the West Coast. So it's very common at Penzic to see the tiki torches stuck in
Jammed
a hay bale. And that is like horrifying.
Well, you can always tell the Caidins and the Westies at Penzic, because we panic when we see unattended tiki torches and those smudge pots that they set along. It's like,
but I mean,
you're going to
and
set
that's
us on
not
fire.
Like, it's not one torch; it's 100
Yes.
down, you know, 100 yards. I mean, it's an
Yes.
incredible amount of open flame.
Oh, it's
there,
terrible.
so
It's very, very
Granted,
difficult.
it does rain and there is moisture there, but it is a very different experience.
Yes, you can always tell the Kaidans and the Westies because we shudder and we reach to put them out, and
Oh, Lord.
the
I was
camps don't
very
like that. They're
fortunate.
watching their fingers.
I was very fortunate that at my very first Penzic,
Mhm.
friend put me in a golf cart and said, okay, I'm going to drive you around site until you stop twitching.
Yeah.
And fires, the smudge pots. We finally got those out of our camp when somebody lit her dress on fire walking past.
There you go.
You know, and yeah, he drove me around, and the first hour I was like, and then I eventually calmed down because we kept driving through puddles.
Yeah.
It is a different experience.
That's
Does
definitely
anyone-
interkingdom anthropology.
Sure.
Right.
Does anyone want to talk about vendors or merchants?
I can do that unless somebody
Okay.
else has a plan, because I've been merchant steward off and on for 25 years. You need to talk to the county and find out what their rules are, because every county has different rules.
Mhm.
And
That's
San
the
Diego-
Board of Equalization.
Board of Equalization is the state.
Okay.
You have to deal with them as well. But the counties each county has a different rule. San Diego County does not charge per merchant.
Mhm.
Kern County does. It's not a huge amount of money, but the merchants need to know that.
Mhm.
The Board of Equalization, you as the steward or your merchant steward has to confirm that they actually have a California issued seller's permit. No matter what state the vendor is from, they have to have a California permit. The permit does not cost money, but they've got to have it.
And now they have to have a site-specific permit because sale tax issue.
Yes, because each county charges different.
Not too far from my house in California, where the sales tax jumps from, I think it's 9.25% to 11% crossing a street.
Wow. But yeah, you're right. Each county has a specific,
Each
actually it's each site.
specific site, they
Yeah,
have
so
to
that
have a permit to sell at that site.
so that if you were a busy merchant, you'd have one for Potrero and one for Great Western and one for the ones up in the west and one for Estrella. But anything, and they show me, they have to show the merchant steward that they have a copy. And the Board of Equalization checks. They send somebody to the site and they make the merchants show them their permits.
And if we are the ones hosting the event and we have merchants there without the right paperwork, we also will be fined.
There is, well, it depends on the people who come. If you have, for the sake of argument, 60 merchants and one of them has a permit for a different county, they will make the merchant go get the new permit and they won't fine us. But if all of them are out of compliance, we're in deep trouble.
A substantial number of them, yeah.
How
that
big a
would be-
deal is it to have power for the merchants versus the merchants having their own generator?
We don't allow generators at all. Not at Great Western, not at Potrero.
Okay. But it's my understanding that there is limited power available
No,
from the
there's-
park.
at Potrero, there's virtually none. And the
Okay.
only people who have access to it are the food merchants.
Okay.
They have access to power, which has been run from a permanent stone bathroom facility over to where the food merchants are. And I mean, it's an underground conduit
Mhm.
with, proper outlets and, all of that, which we paid for
Mhm.
to make that possible. At Great Western, again, only the food merchants have access to power. And we bring in a big generator and it runs the the food merchants, the food court headquarters, and the ice storage thing. And
Do
nobody
the
else.
do the food merchants pay extra to get that?
They
power?
pay a little bit extra to be food merchants, but it's not a huge amount.
Okay.
I mean, it's not double what the other merchants pay, but there is a variation, a difference. I just don't
Mhm.
know what it is off the top of my head.
But it's budgeted as a break even, not a profit center.
Right. So permits, both county and state. Kern County is very strict about a number of things, so the vendors have to comply with that. We try very hard to make sure that the merchants are not treated as if they are just a cash cow.
Okay.
That is, first of all, it's insulting, and it
Mhm.
and it also keeps merchants away. If, well, I mean, at the Renaissance Fair, merchants pay a lot of money. They pay an enormous amount of money. It's thousands of dollars to be a merchant at the Southern Renaissance Fair.
Well, and don't they also
And-
get a percentage?
They might, that I don't know.
Okay.
But our policy within our barony for Potrero and within the kingdom for Great Western is that we do not charge the merchants an enormous amount of money. It's certainly less than $100, I think. I mean, because I haven't been for Great Western for a while. It's probably $70.
Yeah, I think West's is like 75.
And that includes one gate fee.
Okay.
So they're getting their gate fee and their space for $75. If they want a additional space, they pay more money. They don't get an extra gate fee, gate person, token. We spend a lot of time laying out Merchants Row so they actually get the space that they pay for.
And we're getting our last 5 minutes warning.
Okay.
There. Okay, so I think we should round it up, but any other final questions or suggestions, comments, anything? I keep this as an ongoing discussion for me, just because I definitely have a new site and event in mind. And I've been trying to glean little pieces here and there. But I would say there's more than an hour's worth of planning involved. So I'm
Yes.
trying to do as much as we can, but it will be an ongoing process. For me, my biggest thing, I run a tavern. So I'm very interested in the activity planning for the evenings. And that seems to frequently be left off of the official schedule. But I think I definitely have strategies on ways that it can be incorporated gently and still encourage camp to camp roaming and frivolity.
I was
Well,
gonna say, Joel, you can ping me for that planning of this event that's in that devious little brain of yours to come in on that committee if you want,
Please.
or whatever it is you're doing over there.
Okay. Otherwise, thank you all very much for sharing your time with me. I really appreciate
Well,
seeing your faces, and I hope to see you in person soon.
well, the magic thing is you have a site and you can build it from there. If you don't have a site, it's a much bigger problem.
Yeah, and I've actually walked on the site. I've stayed overnight there. I know it's a real thing. I've touched it. I've looked at
Two
it.
critical items, site and staff. You've got them,
Yeah.
you've got an event.
Yep, pretty much.
Alrighty. Thank you very much. I think that
Thank
covers
you.
it. Alistair, if you want to cut us, I think we're done. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you. I'm stopping the recording.